In the last episode, you heard from John Ibbotson, CEO of True Cable, and we talked about product education to increase conversions. Now, today on episode number 54, get ready. We've got Dylan Kim, who's co-founder and head of marketing at Brevitē. We're talking about social media here today because Brevitē is a highly successful direct-to-consumer backpack brand that's managed to scale their social media audience to over 2.5 million followers. And as you've probably figured out, well, organic social has been a tremendous engine of growth for the brand. And well, how they've done it is exactly what we'll be talking about today. I'm your host, Raphael Paulin-Daigle, and I'm the founder of SplitBase. This is Minds of E-commerce. Now, this episode is brought to you by SplitBase. At SplitBase, we help leading 8- and 9-figure brands such as Dr Squatch, Hyperice, Amica, Once Upon a Farm grow through customer-focused conversion optimization programs. Our programs pinpoint exactly where your store is losing money most, and then, well, we help you fix it. So the result, you get increased conversions, higher AOV, higher lifetime value even, and of course, more money, which in return allows you to scale advertising profitably. We've been at it for over a decade now, and we can help you manage CRO from A to Z. And that means from customer research, conversion design, strategy, copywriting, development. We do it all, so we focus on your e-commerce sales while you get to focus on what you do best. So go to splitbase.com to request a free proposal today and learn how we can help you get the most out of your marketing spend. All right, Dylan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, as you know, this episode is all about going deep, right? And dissecting one key growth strategy so our listeners can get the most value right away. And now, Brevitē, I mean, you've been running the business with your brothers for about how many years now, just for context?
Yeah, so we just hit 10 back in January. We initially launched on Kickstarter and yeah, it's been a decade.
And what are maybe, just for people to get context on kind of the scale of the brand, is there any milestones that you can share with us?
Yeah. So we are um in the gosh, I'm like losing count of my numbers here. So we're like a 7 to 8 figure brand. Yeah, really just trying to use organic social to really scale and hit those, higher milestones.
Yeah, and 2.5 million organic social followers. That's across a couple different platforms. So here we're talking about which platform specifically. Where's the focus?
Yeah. So I would say we initially got started on TikTok, and now our focus is YouTube and Instagram coming in second. We're pretty platform agnostic. I feel like it's like wherever we get the reach, we'll take it.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, it really started off kind of short form TikTok first, and has now kind of evolved into it's still primarily short form, but just with YouTube leading the way as well as Instagram.
Amazing. Now, how did it happen? Because I think a lot of brands are just obviously going all in, and it probably same with you guys with paid social.
Yeah.
But organic social for a lot of brands is an afterthought, and it's kind of rare. We've seen a couple brands here and there really excel at organic social. Um, I'm thinking, Dr. Squatch's been one that's really killed it over the couple of years. In your case, well, you guys have achieved significant scale because of organic social. So how did it all start? What was the initial strategy, or was it even just maybe an accident?
Yeah, no, it was very specific. So this was 2021, TikTok, I feel like we're all locked in for the pandemic. I was very
Yeah.
intrigued by it, and we were facing a ton of headwinds, as I'm sure you well remember from iOS 14. And so as we were kind of facing those headwinds, we had begun kind of experimenting, tinkering. We're a bootstrap brand, so I'm always like really interested in however we can get attention for the lowest cost possible, right? And so I'd begun kind of tinkering with TikTok, and I'll never forget it. It was early March. we had our first viral video, and I feel like from that point I was hooked. We had our highest traffic day in years, and so from that
Amazing.
point on, we leaned heavy into it, where we were like, okay, how can we, you know, try and have one of those days every day? And then, you know, with the headwinds, with the headwinds of iOS 14, and rising acquisition costs, things like that, how could we use, similar kind of tracking and kind of workflow management, things like that, and lean into organic social with that?
Right. So you said something interesting, which is when you saw the possibilities of it, you started asking yourself, how can we make that happen every single day? So I guess my question is, how are you guys doing it? If we start maybe with a high level strategy or high level, a bird's eye view on the strategy, and then we're going to go a little deeper, what does it look like?
Yes, yeah. I would say if we're going top down, right? I think it has to be kind of a a brand initiative, right? And I think especially today, it's gotten, in 2021, you could almost post anything and it would get viewership or views, and everyone's trying to figure out. It was a little messy.
Yeah.
Whereas I think, people, and you scroll in your feed and you can see people have gotten very smart, like even video creators within, our space, our niche, maybe in 2020 it was like, let's say like 20 people. Now it's 2,000 people. So I think it really has to come from like the heart of the brand and kind of work its way down, as opposed to the opposite, where I speak to a lot of other brands and they're like, oh, you know I have my social media person on this, right? Or I've hired an intern, or some entry level employee. And it's good to get the reps up and good to get that repetition, but the true value comes from, what are you trying to say as a brand? What messaging, what pain points, how are you trying to help your customers? And then how can you use organic social? How can you post on, you know, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever medium you want? How can you find a way to do that consistently? Not at a breakneck pace. You
Hmm.
don't need to post daily. I would say it's just how can you do it consistently so you at least get the learnings, right? It's kind of like the same way that like paid advertising would work, right?
Right.
Where have your tranche of creative, you're getting your learnings, you're testing things, you're trying to see what works and going from there.
Let's talk about the content. So I went through your TikTok videos, and your Instagram, and you do have quite a variety of content out there. But I'm wondering, when you're thinking of that strategy, are you trying to be always content focused? Is every video, every post about the product? Or are you maybe gonna diverge a little bit and sometimes, have content that's more about the audience? What's the strategy? What's the mix here? There was a time I remember, and I don't know how much it's true today, but I don't think it's very up to date. But there was a time I remember where people were saying, don't even post about your product, just post about everything that your audience likes. Definitely not the case today. I think people's patience is quite shorter. But I'm curious in your case, what's working today? And let's add to that, is there anything that used to work that isn't working today?
Great question. Yeah, so I would say a big part of what we do is, we do try to be involved in our audience lives. We do try to
Hmm.
kind of make content that they would find enjoyable. And then also like have our product kind of be in that content as well, right? Where there's even like get ready with me content is kind of having uh, a moment right now. And so we're making some stuff
Yeah.
kind of tangentially related to that, right? Where it's like, oh, if you've seen, Ashton Hall, and you've seen him dunk his face in water, right? Like, getting ready and packing your bag and all of that is a part of your day, right?
Yep.
And so like playing into that, right? And so you can kind of use these moments to kind of um, make your brand relevant, but it doesn't have to just be like, okay, like this is just a get ready with me video, if that
Yep.
makes sense, right? It's
Yep.
like, okay, this get ready video, and this is how like my brand is helping you, you know? Um, I think it also is very related to the product, where like I'm sure there's certain niches and things like that, where maybe like supplements or something, where it's like the product itself is actually not that interesting. So
Yeah.
it's the lifestyle around it that becomes interesting. And so I think there's, depending on where you're at, it kind of like, if it's just lifestyle and product, it kind of wavers. Um, but I would say get the learnings. I would say like look at the data, and kind of go from there. In terms of things that used to work that no longer work, in my opinion, I think uh, I always say like trends are kind of like, brands are like, oh, like we can have whatever this like we can put this sound over it, and everyone's doing this thing. And I think the hard part with that is that a lot of people watch videos and watch those trend videos for like the variety. They don't watch it for you, right?
Hmm.
So you might get a lot of views on it, but it's because it's trending and like the trend is getting a lot of views. You're not getting a lot of views.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. And I think on the topic of trends, I think what some brands don't realize is trends don't have a very long lifespan these days, right? So you got to be on it at the right moment or don't do it because, if you're 2 days late, it might already be over. I'm now, how do you translate views into conversions? Because obviously having a lot of followers, having a lot of views, that's one thing. But are there specific things that you guys do to incentivize people to go to the website and to buy? How do you think about the conversion cycle when it comes to organic social?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I feel like there's like that meme that kind of has the bell curve, and I feel like I've kind of, that's my trajectory, where I think like if you make really great things that your audience resonates with, and gets great viewership, then the rest kind of takes care of itself, right?
Right.
Where um it's like, I don't know, it's like trying to optimize any funnel where you're like, oh, I could tweak this email, or I could tweak this, the hook of this ad, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas it's like you might just be better off like whatever, making a better email, making a better ad, right? As opposed to kind of getting lost in like the
Yes.
minutia of like, I don't know, like the hold rates and whatever, open rates and all of that stuff. And so that's really what we focus on, is making the best videos possible that resonate with our audience, and then seeing that kind of trickle down. And that's kind of
Hmm.
our first and foremost thought. And then there's things, like we use a post-purchase survey, so we use Fairing, and that's been very helpful. It kind of cuts through the noise. You get a lot of, you're blessed with traffic, but you get a lot of bad traffic as well,
Yep.
as you can imagine, just because it's organic social, right? Like
Yeah.
how many products have I scrolled through that I'm like, oh, I don't even really care about this, but I'll check them out. Um, and so I would say, like, one, post the best video possible, like really try and just like get a learning, find what resonates with your audience, and then two, look at your post-purchase survey, or some like deeper level metrics, things kind of that are not on these social platforms.
Hmm. I want to talk about tools in a second, but first, I was wondering when it comes to the actual content that you guys shoot, have you found that there is a formula or a general pattern for, the videos, for example, that the videos should follow? Or would you say that it's really just about volume and experimentation, uh, at the end of the day?
Yeah, yeah. A really important distinction is, uh, I guess one, the formula is very simple. It's like, you know, same with, it's like very similar to paid ads, right? It's like have a good hook, and then get people to watch the video, right? Like I feel like what's always so interesting is, sometimes people will put like the most important fact at the end of a video, right? Or like at the end of an ad, and you're like, okay, this should be like what we begin with, right? Like this is the
Yeah.
hardest hitting, right? Like don't give me but wait, there's more, right? Give that to me first, and then have something else be that. Um, like a lesser maybe fact at the end, right? And so I think it's those two components of getting someone to, um, hooking them in, and then getting them to watch the video. And then the second part is, which I think is a very, very important nuance, is it's getting people to experiment a lot, um, but not posting in such a way where like you kind of cease to have the learning. Like it's very
Mm,
easy to get caught like where it's like oh, I need to make like 3 videos a day, right? And you're kind of just like, well, what are you learning from these? And you're like, I don't know. I'm just posting, right? Like I'm just going for it, right? I'm just trying to get those shots up, right? Those shots on goal. And you kind of look back and you're like, well, none of that really worked. And it wasn't like I didn't have any good hypotheses for why
right.
those didn't work, right? Um, it's like this, I don't know. It's the same with so many different other forms of marketing as well, where it's
Yeah.
like you create too many ads, you have no idea why you've done it, you know? And so I think
Yep.
there's kind of a sweet spot between, what you're trying to solve for and what you're trying to experiment for and the volume that you're reasonably able to produce.
Mm. And I think you nailed it here. So, posting on social is just like any other A/B test or experiment. You should have a hypothesis, you should learn from it, right? You should make every move worthwhile, whether it works or not. You should be able to get value out of it as a brand so you know how to improve over time. Um,
Yeah.
I'm curious though, we're talking here about quantity. Have you found that there's an ideal posting frequency? How does frequency or quantity matter when it comes to your strategy?
Yeah, I think it matters in terms of what you get to learn, is kind of how I look at it, where
Mm,
let's say you post a video per day and you're kind of trying to learn different things. Maybe it's like, oh, I'm doing a man on the street interview and I'm starting it a different way. Or maybe I'm doing this like some sort of comment reply video and I'm doing that a different way, or I'm trying to answer a customer question in a fun, interesting, or maybe I'm telling a story about the brand. And so a lot of it kind of comes down to those initial questions you ask yourself, to kind of get that momentum. And so I would say like starting there, um, is much more important than trying to hit like we post 3 times a day.
yeah,
I think like a lot of that kind of conventional wisdom is really aimed at like get comfortable making things and posting
right.
them, and then kind of going from there. I always say we should be excited to post things and we should be excited to learn what we want. Because I think it's really easy to be like, well, I gotta post a third video today, so let me just like whatever, film myself typing at the computer and throw something over that. And you're like, that's great, but like, what were you really trying to get from that video, or what were you really trying to learn?
Mm,
Um, I feel like I talk a lot about like learning and education and experimenting and things like that, but it's really important to kind of build the foundation of a really strong strategy.
yeah, that's great advice. Um, Obviously, when we're doing these strategies, you also need to know if it's working and what's working and taking all those learnings, as you said. So you said you're using Fairing as a way to get attribution, and to help with that. Are there any other tools that help you better understand either your audience or the performance that you really love using or that's essential to your strategy?
Yeah, it's quite simple. I'm like a GA4 like nerd. Or I've become one, I should say. I do miss Universal Analytics a lot. But I think
Many of us do.
I know, but I think you have to track your traffic. I think
Yeah.
if I don't know, it's like basic URL hygiene, I think is something that is
Hmm.
like profoundly overlooked, which hurts me dearly, right? I would say just like throw some UTMs on things, make sure it's not coming in as direct traffic to your site, by any means necessary. And then that in itself will help kind of, either prove the channel or disprove the channel, right?
Yeah.
And I would say that paired with a post-purchase survey, you'll kind of know what works and what doesn't work. I think it's quite hard and takes a lot of effort to get things to work well. Like I don't want to underplay that. Like it is this is a strategy. This is not like you know, like I said at the beginning, right? Like you hire someone to abdicate that responsibility, right? Like this comes from the brand
Yeah.
and they have to be like working that.
Yeah. Amazing. I think it's easy to forget about the basics and chase kind of the shiny tools and the shiny objects. And yet, I'm in GA every day, and there are so many brands that don't have their channel group set up properly, and all the traffic comes in as direct, right? And those are the basics. And I'm glad you mentioned that. We've been talking to Dylan Kim, who's co-founder and head of marketing at Brevitē. Now, Dylan, unfortunately, we're already out of time. I could have kept this going for at least another hour. But if people want to learn more from you about the brand, where should they go?
Yeah, I would say connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Dylan Kim there. Um, and yeah, always like anyone can reach out. Happy to chat.
Amazing. Dylan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.